if you have children, you have assets you want to preserve together, you really don't want to get into a public display. There's just so many benefits of the collaborative process that you just can't put a price tag on.
Welcome, everybody. We're here today to talk about the collaborative process, and in particular, we're here to talk about cost and time in the collaborative process and the traditional divorce process. I've got here with me today Jenny Buska, who's a financial neutral, practices in collaborative law, Wendy Rawlings, who is a mental health professional who practices as a divorce coach and a family specialist and child specialist in the collaborative practice, Wendy Zicht, who's an attorney who practices in collaborative law, and Leslie Bottomore, who's also an attorney who practices in collaborative law. And I'm Tina Johnson, an attorney who practices in collaborative law. So welcome, everybody. Cost and time. Let's talk about that. I'm sure for all of you, I know for me, clients are often really worried about how long this is going to take and what the cost is going to be. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Does the collaborative process cost more? Leslie, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. In terms of cost, litigation, going to court, hearings, being in and out of court, formal discovery, interrogatories, requests for production of documents, subpoenas, depositions even, and then ultimately maybe a marathon style mediation, and maybe the couple does not resolve their case there. Ultimately, trial can be extraordinarily costly, and in some cases, even upwards of $100,000 or more. So it's extraordinary. Whereas collaborative practice, we're working together as a team with professionals that are doing the work that they're best suited to do. So, for example, Wendy Rawlings might come in and meet with parents to develop their co-parenting communications, their values around parenting, their styles, and also their parenting plan, keeping in mind the developmental needs of the child or children. And Jenny Buska might come in and rather than say you, Tina, and I crunching numbers and going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and wasting a whole lot of time and resources of the couple, Jenny come in and run scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. So maybe A works for husband, B works for wife, and C is a brainstorm option that may be a solution they haven't considered. So it's very cost effective where the attorneys are actually delegating some of that non-legal work that's best done by folks who do that kind of work day in and day out.
Thank you, Leslie. So you're saying that it doesn't cost more. And Wendy Rawlings, can you tell us a little bit about Leslie just mentioned about how you work with clients?
Sure. So if there's children involved, I will work with the children to help be their voice in their parents' divorce, find out what they want, explain that to the parents, help the parents understand what's developmentally appropriate for them, for their children, help them with co-parenting communications issues, because that's usually an issue in this situation, and then help the parents come up with a parenting plan that would work for them. We hand over the worksheet that we use for that to the attorneys, and the attorneys prepare the legal documents, the final documents for the court signature. The whole process is not therapy, but it's very process oriented, very family focused, and its goal is to preserve relationships. And a lot of times there's not great relationships going on at that point, so it's to preserve what they got. It's to help them troubleshoot and figure out ways to make the relationship better, help them adjust, help the kids adjust to their parents' situation that of course affects the children, and to come out on the other end a lot stronger, a lot better communication, and a lot more understanding of what's next.
Thank you, Wendy. And Jenny, Leslie also mentioned work that you do and how the cost differs between traditional litigation and collaborative. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I work with clients on a neutral basis. So when clients work with in a litigation format, they are providing all of their documentation to their respective attorney, and then their attorneys, I believe, share that information. Attorneys, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. So that in and of itself creates double the work. Each attorney is going through and doing the exact same work that one financial neutral would do on a collaborative case. I collect all the documentation, I enter it into my software and create two reports that we then work off of to create the scenarios that Leslie was discussing. So it is very neutral. I'm not taking sides of, he said, she said. It's just more information gathering, and this is what we have based on the information that's gathered, based on the documentation that's presented. And the nice thing is that in a collaborative case, clients are more forthcoming with information. They understand that this is the expectation, that the entire team, the professional team, has this expectation, and therefore they are more willing to just present the information because it's just matter of fact, it's expected, and they don't try to withhold information for the most part on collaborative cases.
Thank you, Jenny. Wendy Zicht, would you please tell us about, from the attorney perspective, how is the cost different?
Well, there's different types of costs. Some are financial, and I agree with what Leslie said, and also with what Jenny said. When you're looking at a case that's going to go through court, you're doubling a lot of the work. You always have two experts on every issue that's contested, whether it's valuing a house or valuing a pension. Versus in a collaborative case, all experts are jointly retained, they're neutral, and it's one per issue. And stepping back, I want to confirm we're talking about cases where there are contested issues, whether it's in court or it's collaborative. And a lot of people think because something is collaborative, it means it's uncontested. We're talking about cases where there are issues that are contested. And if you're going to take those through court and pay for two experts versus one, you are going to pay more in getting through whatever those issues are. There's also some benefits of handling cases out of court they can't really put a price tag on, but they have to do with quality of life and your confidentiality. Everything in court pretty much is open to the public. Anybody could come in and watch your hearing. They can watch your trials. They can review your documents online. Your neighbors, your friends, your employers get to review them if they want to, versus in a collaborative case, we have a statute that mandates all information is confidential. And so confidentiality can be huge. Another benefit that really you can't put a price tag on is the ability to maintain a relationship with your other spouse. And you may not want to do that as you're going through a divorce, but at the back end of it, if you have children or you have property or a business to manage, you do need to have some semblance of communication and a willingness to work together to resolve parenting issues or running a business. After litigation, where you've been on opposite sides and you've been through that vitriol, polarization, having to testify, cross-examine one another, you have really no relationship left. And so if you have children, you have assets you want to preserve together, you really don't want to get into a public display. There's just so many benefits of the collaborative process that you just can't put a price tag on.
Thank you, Wendy, for bringing up those costs that are not necessarily money. They're something else. And this is something that worries clients too, I know. Leslie, do you want to tell us any more about that? What are these other
Oh,
costs?
yeah, huge, huge, non-economic, I would say, non-monetary costs. In litigation, well, Wendy Zicht mentioned lack of privacy. That's huge for people. Another big one is lack of self-determination. So in collaborative divorce or collaborative practice, the participants, so the two spouses or the two parents, are making all decisions about their fate. together collaboratively with the support and the framework and the safety of the container that the professionals build around them to guide them through the conflict. As Wendy Zick said, there is a conflict, and it's just the form in which they choose to resolve it. Do couples, parents want self-determination, or do they want a judge or a court commissioner deciding their fate? And with all due respect to the court, Wendy's been a judicial officer. I've been a pro tem judicial officer, and we have a high regard for the court, and they work very hard and they really try to make the right decisions. But it's just that the judge or the court commissioner is making the decision rather than the people that are going to have to live with the decision, making it themselves. And then the timeline, too, is another non-economic cost, although it does impact the dollars spent. I've had collaborative cases where the couple wants to be done and finalized on the 91st day. They want their final divorce order entered on the 91st day. And we're able to accommodate that if they make decisions and reach agreements on each and every term that the court will expect to see in the form of final court orders. And then we've all had cases where the couple might want to try marriage and family counseling because suddenly they've learned how to communicate better. They've learned each other's values. They see each other face to face because they're at the same table talking to one another at the same time. Whereas in litigation, there's a lot of back and forth, and the couple is thinking about their case at different times. This couple that we're working with, everything's front and center at the table, with hopefully their children front and center and not caught in the middle of their conflict. And so they might want to say, a couple months in, can we pause? Can we try marriage and family counseling? So I think we see a greater number of reconciliations. In fact, the stats are that some of the cases that terminate out of collaborative practice were actually reconciliations.
So thank you, Leslie, and everybody for talking with us about costs. What I'm hearing from everybody seems to be that the collaborative process can really keep these costs down. Thank you, everyone, for being here today and answering questions on this topic. And look forward to talking with you again.